The sheriff's knock rattled my Honolulu apartment door so hard my coffee sloshed onto the counter. When I opened it, he handed me a thick envelope with that calm, detached look people wear when they're just doing their job. "Noelle Adams?" he asked. I nodded, even though part of me wanted to say no and lock the door. Inside was a notice from a lawyer my older brother Lucas and my sister-in-law Carla were threatening to sue me for intentional sabotage of their anniversary trip at the beach property I own. A few weeks earlier, instead of showing up as the unpaid maid at our family's little vacation building, I had been stretched out by an infinity pool in Santorini with a cocktail in my hand. I am Noelle, 31, a marketing manager in Honolulu, and apparently the villain in my family's favorite drama. Before I tell you what they did and how I finally pushed back, I want to know, has your own family ever treated you like hired help instead of someone they love? Tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what you would have done with that envelope in your hand. Those papers started with a text from Carla while I was polishing a client deck late one Tuesday. "Noelle, get to Leilani's Suites, first thing Friday. Deep clean, all 3 units, stock the fridge, fluff everything. Don't be late, we need it perfect for photos." A second message followed seconds later. "And scrub the lanai railings this time. Last time you missed spots." I stared at the screen, a bitter laugh catching in my throat. Leilani Suites is the small beachfront building my grandmother left to me, but in Lucas and Carla's heads, it might as well be their private resort, with a built-in housekeeper. More instructions rolled in gift baskets. Fresh flowers, new towels, none of them phrased as requests. I knew exactly how the argument would go if I pushed back. They would call me ungrateful, my dad would beg me to keep the peace, and my mom would ask me to help out just this once. Instead, I opened a travel site and typed in the farthest place I could reach on short notice. That rebellion in front of my laptop felt sudden, but it had been building since childhood. Growing up in Honolulu, I was Lucas's little sister before I was ever just Noelle. My dad Brian liked to brag about how early Lucas started surfing, how many trophies he brought home, how he would carry on the Adams name. My mom Teresa was softer, but backed him up, asking me to be patient when my brother cut in line, took the better seat, or grabbed the bigger slice of cake. If Lucas left sandy gear spread across the living room, she handed me the broom. If he forgot his lunch, my dad asked me to drop it at school on my way to class, like my time weighed less. They did not hate me, they just mostly saw me when something needed to be done. I learned to smooth things over, to be the one who stepped into gaps and picked up what other people dropped. That skill would later pay my bills in marketing, but inside our family, it branded me with one word: useful. Things shifted again when Lucas brought home Carla. She had a polished smile, clothes that looked chosen for photos, and strong opinions about everything from beach angles to my mother's recipes. After a few years on the mainland, they moved back to Honolulu and immediately became my parents' favorite couple to brag about. At first, Carla poured honey over everything. She raved about my mom's cooking, laughed at my dad's stories, and posted flattering family dinner in paradise pictures. The shine wore off for me one Thanksgiving. I had been in the kitchen since morning, basting turkey, chopping vegetables, washing pans as we went. Carla breezed in an hour before dinner with a store-bought pie and a joke about saving the day. Later that night, I walked past the open lanai door and heard her on the phone telling a friend Noelle is insanely helpful. "It is like having staff, but you do not have to pay them." She laughed. Her friend laughed. I stood in the hallway with a dish towel in my hand and realized she did not see me as Lucas's sister at all. After college, I landed a job at a small marketing agency and slowly worked my way up to managing campaigns for local brands that wanted to look bigger than they were. It was not glamorous, more late-night edits and panicked client calls than rooftop parties, but I liked making puzzle pieces fit. My coworkers cared about strategy and results. My family called my job cute and joked that I played on the computer. When Carla learned one of my clients was a boutique hotel, she started texting for insider rates and favors, insisting it was great exposure. On nights when I was glued to my laptop finishing a pitch deck, my phone lit up with orders like drop fresh sheets at Leilani before our guests arrive. If I said I was slammed, she told me I could do my little posts later. Once, during a huge meeting with a potential national brand, my phone buzzed again and again because she wanted an update on beach chairs at Leilani. I silenced it, but still stumbled over a key slide and we lost the client. My dad's only comment was that my brother and Carla counted on me, and maybe I should juggle a little better. The cruel part was that the one thing they leaned on me for actually belonged to me. Leilani Suites is a 3-unit building a short walk from Ala Moana Beach, tucked behind plumeria trees and an old rock wall. My grandmother Lorraine bought it decades ago, renting to military families and local workers, when that street was still mostly modest homes. My best childhood memories are from weekends there, folding crisp sheets and listening to her talk about old Honolulu. When she passed away, her will stunned everyone. She left Leilani entirely to me. My dad had assumed he would inherit it, or at least share it. Instead, Grandma wrote that I was the one who showed up, the one who understood what it meant to care for a place, and she wanted me to decide its future. I promised I would honor that, keep the building in good shape, and maybe use it as a step toward real financial freedom. But when I told my family I planned to rent it carefully and not turn it into a revolving free vacation, they heard only open door. Soon, Lucas and Carla were texting dates like they were booking a hotel they owned. Lucas's birthday last year showed me just how bad it had gotten. Carla decided it needed to be epic and invited half her influencer circle. They took both upstairs units for 3 nights, arriving with coolers, tripods, and garment bags. I stopped by after work the first evening to drop off extra towels and found Carla directing people like a cruise director, posing them for candid shots and talking about which corner had the best light. Lucas barely looked up, just tossed me his truck keys and asked me to move it if parking got tight. When their group finally checked out on Sunday, I drove over already braced for damage. Sand coated the floors, trash bags bulged on the lanai, lipstick stained the pillowcases, and a glass coffee table had been cracked and propped back up like no one would notice. I spent hours scrubbing and hauling broken furniture to the dumpster. When I texted Carla photos and said we needed to talk about respecting the space, she replied that I was being dramatic and called it normal wear and tear. My dad saw the pictures and shrugged that they are young, they are having fun, as if that paid for repairs. That weekend finally pushed me to set boundaries, even if they felt flimsy at first. I wrote a simple house guide for Leilani that explained how to leave the units, where to put laundry, what not to drag across the tile, and what counted as damage. I sent it in the family group chat with a note that everyone, including Lucas and Carla, had to follow the same rules as paying guests. I added that if anyone wanted special prep gift baskets, deep cleaning stocked fridges, I would schedule it and hire help, which cost real money. Carla shot back a line of laughing faces and wrote that I was acting like a strict hotel manager and needed to be flexible. Lucas chimed in that I had always been good at this stuff and asked why I was making it weird. My mom quietly called and begged me not to start a war over towels. I kept my voice steady and explained that every time they trashed the place, it cost me hours and repairs I could not just swallow. To protect myself, I changed the locks, stopped leaving spare keys under the plants, and started blocking off dates if they did not confirm in advance. So when Carla called 3 days before their long weekend and told me to come to my parents' house that evening, I already had a bad feeling. Her voice had that cool, clipped tone she used when she wanted to sound professional. I drove across town with my stomach tight. In the living room, my mom perched on the sofa, my dad stood by the sliding door, and Lucas and Carla sat together on the other couch like a panel. Carla had a notebook on her lap. "We are using Leilani this weekend for our anniversary content," she began. "It is going to be huge. We really need the place spotless and fully stocked." She rattled off a list: fresh flowers, new beach towels, welcome baskets, a charcuterie board in the fridge matching mugs for photos. I started to remind her I had a full week of work and had already said I would not be doing full prep anymore, but she cut me off with a flick of her hand. And before you ask, no, you are not coming. It is an adults only couples retreat. We just need you to handle the place like you always do. Think of it as your role in the family. Her words landed like a slap. My role in the family, I repeated. Lucas leaned back, eyes sliding away from mine. Come on, Nell. Do not make it a whole thing. You are great at details. We are the ones on camera. Everyone has their lane. My dad shifted and mumbled that it was easier if you helped them because they had already told some cousins about the trip. My mom offered a weak compromise, saying maybe afterward we could all plan a nice dinner there together. Carla smiled a thin, satisfied line. You are basically like the on-site manager, she said. You are good at cleaning and organizing. We are good at bringing visibility. It all helps the family. In that moment, something clicked in a way I could not unsee. They did not see me as the owner of Leilani at all. They saw me as free housekeeping attached to a building they believed they were entitled to. I waited a beat, hoping someone would correct her, but the room stayed silent. Finally, I swallowed hard and said I would take care of it. Carla relaxed immediately and flipped open her notebook to talk about check-in times and photo angles. Back in my apartment that night, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and my fingers hovering over the keys. Carla's role in the family line looped in my head, layered with every dish I had washed and every drive across town, so Lucas could relax in a clean space I paid for. I opened the travel site I used for clients and for once typed with only myself in mind. I searched for anywhere out of reach of Honolulu traffic and my family's expectations. Santorini floated to the top of the results: white buildings and blue domes stacked over a sea that looked unreal. There was a last-minute deal that would punch a hole in my savings but not destroy me. I thought about all the times I had told myself to wait and keep that money in case the family needs something. Then I thought about how they already treated every sacrifice as a given. I heard my grandmother's voice in my memory saying that when you own something, you decide how to use it. I clicked book, requested a few days of remote work from my boss, and texted my friends, Jenna, Marcus, Naomi, and Chase, asking if anyone was wild enough to join me in Santorini in 2 days. To my shock, they all said yes. 2 days later, we were on a plane, dozing through layovers and blinking awake as the sun rose over different oceans. When we finally reached Greece, the air smelled like sea salt and exhaust, familiar and strange at once. Our hotel clung to the cliff, all white walls and curved lines with an infinity pool that looked like it poured straight into the caldera. That first afternoon, Naomi and I changed into sundresses and wandered down to the pool bar while the guys crashed. The bartender handed me a bright drink, and I carried it to the edge, the sea and sky stretching behind me. Naomi laughed and said my family would lose their minds if they saw me like that. She snapped a few photos until we got one where I looked truly relaxed. Shoulders down, eyes calm like someone who had never scrubbed anyone else's bathroom in her life. I opened the family group chat, saw Carla's last message about wiping the outdoor furniture, and dropped the photo in. No caption, no explanation. Then I slid my phone into airplane mode and set it face down on the table. While Lucas and Carla were rolling their suitcases toward Leilani that Friday, we were eating dinner in a restaurant carved into stone. I did not hear every detail of what happened back home until later, but I can picture it clearly. They pulled up expecting flowers on the tables and crisp sheets turned down, only to step inside and find what they had left earlier: unmade beds, sandy floors, an empty fridge, and the linen closet secured with the new deadbolts I had installed. The welcome mugs Carla demanded were still in their shipping box on the counter. Clean sheets sat stacked in the closet, but no one had laid them out because I had never agreed to play maid this time. When they called around for last-minute cleaners, almost every reputable company was booked. The few with openings charged emergency rates that made Carla's voice jump an octave. As the light for their perfect sunset shot slipped away, they finally gave up and drove to Waikiki, arguing in the car, while I was drifting on a small boat off Santorini, watching the sky turn pink and gold above the water. By the time they found two last-minute rooms in Waikiki Hotel, prices had climbed into a range that would make anyone's stomach flip. They booked anyway, charging each night to a card they expected to use only for outfits and dinners, not basic lodging. Their dream anniversary weekend shrank into a cramped, expensive stay in a generic room with no special backdrop and no custom baskets. From what I heard later through cousins, they spent more on those few nights than I would have paid a professional cleaning crew for months. While they argued over room service charges and lost sponsorships, I was drifting on a small boat off the coast of Santorini, watching the sky turn pink and gold. My friends and I jumped into the water, shrieked at the cold, then climbed back up to wrap ourselves in towels and share stories. That night, when Jenna and the guys headed to a rooftop bar, Naomi and I stayed on the terrace outside my room. The sea, a dark stretch below us, and music floating up from town. She nudged my shoulder and asked what had really pushed me to send that pool photo. So I told her. I talked about years of being the helper, how my parents praised Lucas but called my work cute, how Carla slid into the center of every plan, and how Leilani had turned from my grandmother's legacy into a constant unpaid job. Naomi listened with her feet propped on the low wall, only interrupting to ask a question or to swear quietly when something particularly bad came up. When I described Carla calling cleaning and managing my role in the family, her jaw tightened. "They talk about you like you are an employee. They forgot to put on payroll," she said. "That is not family." I admitted I kept trying to explain things the right way, hoping they would finally see the imbalance and say thank you. "It never happens," I said. "They just raise their expectations." Naomi thought for a minute and then asked, "What if you stop trying to make them understand and just act on what they keep showing you?" Her question landed harder than any lecture. We spent the rest of that night sketching possibilities like we were planning a campaign, only this time, the product was my life. What if I treated Leilani like a real business-hired professional management and wrote policies that applied to everyone, including family? What if I built a small marketing consultancy on the side so I was not tied to my current schedule forever? What if helping out stopped being the automatic first line in my mental budget? Over the next few days, we leaned into that new version of me in small ways. We wandered narrow streets between whitewashed houses, bargained badly for handmade jewelry, and watched the sun slip into the sea while sharing food that tasted like someone's grandmother had made it. I did not log into the booking system once. When work pinged me, it was for small tasks I had already planned around. When Jenna asked me to take a picture, she said please, took the camera back herself, and edited her own post. The contrast burned. My friends were not perfect, but they saw me as a person, not a function. Reality rushed back in the moment my plane touched down in Honolulu. As soon as I turned off airplane mode in the parking garage, my phone buzzed so hard I thought it might slide off the console. There were missed calls from Lucas and Carla, a cluster from my parents, and a flood of texts in the family chat. I sat in my parked car and scrolled. Carla's messages started in all caps, accusing me of abandoning them and leaving the place disgusting on purpose, then shifted into guilt about how embarrassed my parents had been. After that came the threats. Because of me, they had lost a sponsorship I owed them for the hotel and lost income, and they were talking to a lawyer. Lucas's texts were shorter but sharper, saying this was low even for you, and that Grandma would be ashamed I was using Leilani against family. My mom wrote a long paragraph about wishing I had handled it better and how everyone is hurting. My dad simply wrote, "Call me. We need to fix this." My chest tightened, but under the familiar sting was something new, distance like glass between me and their storm. Instead of calling anyone back, I went home, showered, and slept until the sun was high. The next morning, with coffee on my table and my suitcase still half unpacked, I opened my email and found the message that eventually led to that envelope from the sheriff. Carla had written as if she were a corporate manager subject line formal notice regarding Leilani incident. She accused me of negligently failing to prepare the property, listed their hotel costs, and missed business opportunities, and suggested I reimburse them in full to avoid further action. She copied Lucas and my parents as if building a file. I read it twice. Then I opened the scanned copy of my grandmother's will that named me the sole owner of Leilani and gave me full discretion over how to use it. There was nothing about providing free luxury weekends or on-call cleaning. I closed Carla's email without replying and blocked her address. On my phone, I blocked Lucas and Carla's numbers and muted the family chat. The only message I sent was a short one to my parents saying I was safe, I needed space, and that any questions about the property would have to go through proper legal channels. Then I did something I should have done years earlier. I called a professional. Andrea Scott, a property manager and real estate agent I had met at a networking event, picked up on the second ring. I told her in broad strokes that I owned a small building my family treated like their private resort, and that I wanted to run it like a real business or not at all. She did not sound surprised. We set a time to walk through Leilani together. 2 days later, I met her in front of the building. The plumeria trees still framed the tiny parking area, and the ocean still flashed at the end of the street. But I noticed the peeling paint and rust in a way I had ignored before. Andrea moved efficiently from room to room, taking notes and pointing out repairs and simple upgrades that would attract better guests. "You have been doing all this yourself?" she asked, looking at the cleaning supplies stacked in the hall closet. I nodded, feeling foolish. "Not anymore," she said. Her plan was simple. Her company would handle bookings, professional cleanings, maintenance, and enforce clear policies for everyone, family or not. I changed the locks again and handed Andrea the new keys. When I signed the management agreement at her office, something loosened inside my chest. It was not just legal paperwork. It was an exit ramp from a role I had never agreed to. Within a short time, the rent coming in from Leilani actually exceeded the costs of keeping it up. I used the first few months of extra income to wipe out my lingering credit card debt and start a savings cushion for the day I finally launched my own marketing consultancy. That was when the sheriff's knock came and I found myself holding that envelope from Lucas and Carla's lawyer. I took it straight to an attorney a coworker had recommended. He flipped through the pages, then asked to see the will and the management contract. After a careful read, he looked up and said they did not have a real case. I was under no legal obligation to provide free hospitality or personal labor. He filed a response, and a few weeks later, the claim was dismissed without much fanfare. From what I heard through extended family, Lucas and Carla still had to pay their own lawyer and court costs, which were not small. The sponsorships Carla had counted on for that anniversary weekend fizzled when she missed deadlines and had nothing impressive to show. Without the free backdrop of Leilani, her lifestyle content looked a lot more ordinary, and some of her followers moved on. Lucas picked up extra shifts and quietly asked my parents for help with their credit card bills. My parents, who had always assumed Leilani would be there as backup vacation space and emergency housing, found themselves shut out by the new booking system and policies. For once, I was not the one absorbing the fallout of their choices. I did not gloat. Their misfortune was never the goal. The goal was simply to stop letting their bad decisions land squarely on my back. Meanwhile, life on my side of the island got quieter and steadier. With Andrea's team handling the day-to-day work at Leilani, I had evenings that were not spent scrubbing showers or folding sheets. I still worked my marketing job, but knowing I had an asset supporting me instead of draining me changed how I carried myself there. My friends celebrated each small milestone the first month with no family emergencies. The first holiday season, I did not spend driving supplies across town the first time I took a weekend off just because I wanted to. That Thanksgiving, I went to the North Shore with Naomi's family and ate poke and pumpkin pie under a tent while kids ran in the grass. At Christmas, I flew to the mainland with Jenna to visit her parents and remember what winter felt like. Each time I chose those plans, I was also choosing not to answer my mom's voicemails, not to respond to my dad's long emails, and not to reopen the door they kept nudging with guilt. Distance slowly turned into clarity about who they were and who I refused to be for them ever again. I wish I could tell you I reached some graceful forgiveness for my parents and my brother, but the truth is simpler. I understand them better now. My dad hates conflict so much, he will sacrifice anyone's comfort, including mine, to avoid it. My mom is terrified of being left behind, so she clings to whatever keeps the family under one roof, even if it means ignoring who gets hurt. Lucas enjoys being the favored one and has no reason to question a setup where everything flows toward him. Carla treats people and places like props in her personal brand. Understanding all of that helps me stop asking what I did wrong to deserve their behavior. But understanding is not the same thing as forgiving, and it is definitely not the same thing as giving them another chance to use me. I do not owe them my labor, my property, or my presence. Not anymore. These days, when I walk past Leilani and see tourists dragging suitcases up the stairs, or when Andrea emails a tidy report instead of chaos, I think of my grandmother. I like to believe she would be proud that her building is finally treated as the gift she meant it to be, not a leash tying me to people who saw me as a service. The constant weight of being my family's invisible support beam is gone. In its place is something I am still learning to trust: the idea that I am allowed to choose what I give and to whom. Family does not earn unlimited access to you just because you share a last name. When people show you over and over that they value what you do more than who you are, believe them and draw your lines. I cut off contact with my parents, my brother, and Carla. I will not be there for their next crisis, and I will not hand them keys to anything I own again. Tell me in the comments if you have ever had to walk away from family to save yourself, and what you would have done if you were standing in my doorway when the sheriff knocked.